Skoda VO 1950-52. Skoda VO, Czech VLDN Osobní Special, Special Government Passenger Car, is a passenger-heavy and lightly armored executive-class limousine, produced in small series in Czechoslovakia in 1950-1952. According to other sources, until 1953. Although the brand is indicated as Skoda, almost all car factories of the then Czechoslovakia took part in the development and production. The design was developed by ACNP, Automobile of Spodin Rodin Podnik, Czech. The engine and gearbox were manufactured by Praga, the chassis and armored hull were ACNP, and the body, interior, designed with the participation of Tatra, and the final assembly was carried out by Karosa, formerly the bodywork firm Sadumka. It was intended for a narrow circle of party and state leaders of the highest rank of both Czechoslovakia and other socialist countries, as well as leaders of the leading communist parties of capitalist countries. At the end of 1948, General Joseph Pavel, then Deputy Minister of Internal Affairs and Commander of the Border Guard of Czechoslovakia, expressing concern about the growing tension in the border regions of the country, due to the transfer of power to the CPC, the second wave of nationalization, the beginning of collectivization, unorganized settlement of the deported Sudeten German settlements, the growth of immigration, including illegal border crossing, and anti-communist resistance, including the creation of militant groups engaged in sabotage and attempts on party, state and military leaders, put forward a proposal in a short time to develop and produce a special vehicle for leadership for travel exclusively in unsafe areas. The Skoda company was nominated as the executor of the party's assignment, the chief designer of which, Oldrich Magina, had experience in the creation of armored vehicles and tanks in the 30s, in particular, the light tank LTV Z-35. Despite the fact that Skoda and her chief designer at that time were already absorbed in the task of developing a 3-ton army off-road truck, hereinafter the successful Praga V3S car, the task of creating a passenger car for the state elite was recognized as no less significant. The first prototype, created a few months later during off hours, looked too much like an armored car. By that time, the customer's requirements had changed and sounded something like this: a luxury car for everyday use, which would not look like an armored one. It was supposed to create 50 heavily armored and as many lightly armored vehicles for escort purposes, and in appearance they should not differ from each other. Magina decided to first create an armored hull, and then install it on a chassis of appropriate strength and dimensions, select a suitable engine and enclose it with a body. Metallurgical plant in Kladno created special armor with a thickness of 5 mm, used on the lightweight version of the hull in one layer, and on the heavy one in two with a steel wire mesh between them in order to distort the trajectory of a bullet or fragment. The weight of the armored hull itself shows that the total mass of such a car can reach 5 tons, which put forward special requirements for the frame, suspension, engine and wheels of the car, which had to be addressed in a hurry. The compact and powerful gasoline engine at that time, together with the gearbox, was taken from the 3-ton Praga army truck that was being prepared for production. Later the plant switched to a Tatra diesel, reinforced frame, suspension, wheels, tires, braking system had been specially designed using the best available, including imported materials. So, in particular, special Egyptian cotton for the production of cord and Brazilian natural rubber of the highest grade were purchased for the tires. Brake linings were made of Dutch material. Multi-layer double-glazed windows made of tempered mirror glass were glued with the latest American transparent glue. Bringing prototypes to working samples was accompanied by a number of curiosities. For example, for the overweight wife of the President of Czechoslovakia, Klement Gottwald Martha, the interior door seemed too narrow, as a result of which it was necessary to hastily increase not only the width of the doors, but even the base of the car, by 100 mm. Wife of the first secretary of the HRC Rudolf Slansky, being in a state of pregnancy, complained of an overly stiff suspension, which was not surprising given such a mass of the car, so 2 sheets were added to the package of springs, and the spring seats were additionally filled with fluff and a softer grade of genuine leather was used for upholstery. The secrecy requirements reached the point that the Commission of the Ministry of National Defense, acting as the receiver, demanded that the bulletproof glass of the windows of the two options should not differ in appearance, despite the difference in thickness, for the heavy version -52 mm, for light -8 mm, and transparency, thereby forcing the glass manufacturer to slightly tint thinner samples. To prevent the thickness of the glasses from being conspicuous in the lowered position, they could be opened no more than 5 cm. Air conditioners located in the trunk, which, together with the standard transmitting and receiving radio station, occupied its entire volume, and the luggage had to be transported in escort cars,